And we're back. Now we're going to talk about Sony. Sony had a pretty big press conference this year. Unfortunately, no PS3 Slim, which I was kind of looking forward to because the PS3 is a pretty big fat system. But their biggest news was actually leaked quite a bit before they actually had the press conference, the PSP Go.
Or Gonads, as some people like to call it.
Yeah, it's a new PSP with a slide-down control area. But the big thing is it uses no UMDs. It's going to be all digital downloads, and there's no secondary analog nub, and the price is $249. What the fuck? Like, come on.
It better come with, a much harder CPU.
Like, Tom's got the pre-PSP 2000 PSP right there.
PSP 1000, so it's old and clunky, but it feels solid at least.
Yeah, it's a good console to have. I mean, you don't think that digital downloads is the way to go. You think it's a little bit too ahead of its time.
Well, not everybody has... I mean, more and more people are getting access to, high speed and computers themselves, but not everybody has access to those, so it's gonna fall upon deaf ears for a good portion of it. And even then, it's...
way too expensive.
Like, who really wants to keep running out and buying points cards?
Yeah.
I mean, most people who have access to wireless will either have their own credit card or, I guess, a parent.
Yeah, I mean, so. I played with points cards with the Wii for the longest time, and with the Xbox until I got my first credit card, and, I mean, actually makes racking up dollars on your credit card a lot easier.
That's why I don't have one.
Well, that and other reasons. But the thing is, like, if you don't have a credit card, it's a real pain in the ass to get up and go and buy 1,000 or 2,500 points every time. You end up going to buy a few hundred points and having to backlog, so just in case something else comes out.
On the subject of, the credit card buying points, Sony, I'll put it bluntly, I'm a stout Xbox fan right now. I have the DSi for, its downloads. I have a PSP for its PlayStation Network. But right now, I also have the Xbox. Sony possibly has the best download setup. You don't buy points in batches, you just add legitimate money to your wallet. If you need $5.99, you don't have to buy a $9.99 packet and spend $5 and then end up with this odd chunk of money. You pay for how much you need.
Yeah, so you don't have to buy $14.99 for 1,000 points. You just buy whatever you need.
Nintendo's isn't bad. $20 for 2,000 points. You're paying $1 a point.
Microsoft is so odd.
Microsoft goes by $1,400 and $2,400 if you're buying a points card, or $500, $1,000, and I think a $15,000 and like a $5,000 bundle.
Yeah.
Nintendo's isn't bad based on the fact that it's 500, 800, and 1,000 points. Sony, it uses legitimate pricing, and Xbox is 800, 1,200, 1,600, so on. So Xbox is really fucked up. So Sony, they do have the best idea right now with their downloads.
They really do. Speaking of downloads, let's talk about the games right now. Sony unleashed a huge amount of games for the hardcore fans. Uncharted 2 Among Thieves looks amazing. The gameplay footage for that looked unbelievable, and it's definitely one of my must-buy games of this year. God of War 3 was fantastic.
Definite cinematic gore fest. God of War.
He was actually pulling guts out of one of this bad creature or whatever. He was using its own horn and pulling out the guts. That's awesome. They lost a pretty big exclusive with Final Fantasy 13. Final Fantasy 13 is going to be both on Xbox 360 and the PS3. It's going to be one of those things where a dual console owner like myself is going to have to think, do I want the achievements?
I want to build my current collection on one system.
Yeah, well, for me it's achievements or better graphics, because I think Blu-ray in this point is going to be a lot better for the win. But they announced a huge bombshell with Final Fantasy 14 Online.
Square's getting ahead of themselves now. It's not that they don't have the I guess
they got the breathing room to do it.
The catalog to back it up. But they're getting ahead of themselves. They're announcing it's not going to come out for 3 years at least.
Yeah, as we were joking today that tomorrow Square's going to announce Final Fantasy 27.
Yeah,
so
they're really expecting 13 to just be the 13th coming of the Final Fantasy Christ, and
it's going to be big though.
If that game flops, they're probably going to take a dent on 14. Not that I'm saying it well. Don't quote me. I'm just.
I'd rival you to come up with a more loved video game franchise.
Metal Gear Solid?
I don't know. I think they're really close. I think Final Fantasy might beat Metal Gear Solid.
Probably, but I mean, it's...
We've also got Gran Turismo 5. you're not a racing fan, but for me,
GT's a good series.
Being a gearhead, this is a pretty big
played it
one.
on the PlayStation when I first liked it. That's
we've been waiting for a long time,
series.
and it's
the only racing series aside from Ridge Racer that have really stood the test of time.
And it's a true sequel. It's not Gran Turismo Prologue for the PSP. This is a true sequel. It's going to be unbelievable. Resident Evil Mobile for the PSP, and Metal Gear Solid Peace Walker for the PSP, which looks awesome.
And this just confuses it. Like, Four Snakes. That just confuses the shit out of me. I thought I had a grasp on Kojima's, like...
Nobody has a grasp on
textbook.
Kojima's anything. He's a lunatic. But yeah, that was a pretty big announcement, and the trailer looks pretty fun. Looks like a fun game.
Except that Four Snakes is this, like, Legend of Zelda Four Snakes kind of deal going on here.
They all lift big stones together and stuff.
It's confusing as shit.
And closer to the end of the press conference, they had this new game, Mod Nation Racers, which actually, when it came out, I was like, this looks kind of stupid. Your regular kart racing game.
Yeah.
But their level editor is awesome. Like, it's one of the coolest things, and I'm gonna think I'm probably gonna download this when it comes out, because it looks really fun. But I think probably the biggest announcement is Sony's motion control system.
So it's like cutting into Nintendo's market.
Yeah, it's the big thing now is having... I don't know, why is it so bad to use a controller these days?
Well, Nintendo came up, like... Nintendo still has a controller, but Nintendo came up with something that nobody else is doing.
Yeah.
And that's probably taking a lot, if not, a fair chunk of everyone else's market.
Yeah.
And Sony is first and foremost a business and a corporation, so they want money, so they're going to cut into Nintendo's profit. And
it does... I mean, the tech demo they showed, I mean, it was just a tech demo, so all of this... Yeah, basically, all this stuff is just conception right now, but it's basically a Wiimote with a big ball on it.
Red or green LED inside it.
Yeah. But the one-to-one tracking looked really good.
The tech demos were actually pretty amazing stuff, but at the same time, like, it's not something we haven't seen with Nintendo. The only difference is you can have two of the wands going to get... I guess that little extra that Nintendo doesn't have right now.
Mm-hmm.
So,
the thing that was bad about the tech demo was the fact that it was a tech demo. So what they showed us was, some polygon dudes being shot by some guy, and sometimes there was a few things that didn't work as well as they were supposed to. I was still really impressed. I didn't like how they left it all to the imagination. I think it was too early to show something like this. I think they were just trying to one up the competition.
Yeah.
I think this thing is too early. They should have waited until they had some sort of game in development.
With what Microsoft did, which we'll touch on in the next segment, with what Microsoft did, it's probably best that they did it now as opposed to next E3.
Yeah, because I think that, like, as we said when we'll talk about it next, but with what Microsoft did, if Sony brought out this controller thing for the next E3, they'd kind of be behind in the times.
Yeah.
Because now it's, two controllers, controller, no controller, so... But the overall grade for Sony, what do you think? If you had to give it a number out of 5, whatever.
Number out of 5. Oh, before we go, Little Big Planet PSP.
Yeah, that's also another...
well, it's not written on your script.
I didn't write it.
Little Big Planet PSP. It actually looks quite fun, and I'm really happy that they brought one over to the PSP, because there's not enough exclusives, really.
No.
For the PS3 to make me buy one, and honestly, nobody makes anything for the PSP anymore.
That's pretty true.
Like,
nothing good anyway.
Even then, like, the people who make it are just crap. Like, I haven't bought a game for the PSP in like 7 months.
Mm-hmm.
But I give them about a 3.5, somewhere in there.
Yeah, I'm gonna give them a 3 as well. I think Sony needs to get their act together. They have good games, they have great hardware, and they have the fans, but they really don't treat them very good.
Caught them unprepared this year.
Yeah, like Sony, your prices are way too high. I don't know what your CEOs are doing, but they're really stupid. Like, you really got to start pricing stuff better. I mean, the economic crunch hasn't hit the gaming industry yet, but it hits the people who play the gaming industry.
Gamers always need video games. It's probably, along with medicine, it's probably like the most stable job to have.
Mm-hmm. But Sony clearly did not learn from pricing stuff too high with the PS3. Okay. I think that right away, because the PS3 3000
is tiny.
Yeah, it's tiny. It
feels flimsy.
But it's still, it's $189, right? This is $70 more.
Yeah.
And it uses no UMDs. So
it better have, like, serious power.
Yeah, I mean, I think the display's a little bit crisper, and that's kind of it. I think it probably pulls a little bit better connection from wireless networks and stuff, so you can download a little bit faster, and it has an internal hard drive, and, space for expansion with Sony's proprietary memory card, but...
Sony and their proprietary crap.
Yeah, that's another thing I hate about the PSP, is that you only can use those Pro Sticks Duos or whatever, but, I mean, Sony... I think they did better than Nintendo, but
By a hair.
they didn't do very good at all. I think their pricing is too ridiculous. But coming up, we're going to talk about Microsoft.